Hello, everybody. Craig Sherwood here with you once again, along with my co-host, Bob Hart.
Greetings and salutations.
And we're back for another edition of Coach's Corner. So, very good to have it. And we have a special guest here with us today, the retired head coach, CIF Champion coach, I guess you would call it. Yeah, CIF Champion, Jim Ozella. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing well, you guys. I love seeing you guys. It's great to talk to you two Burbank guys, man. I loved it.
Well, it's good having you here. We've got a lot to talk about. He's just written a book, which is an excellent book. It'll take you back. If you have memories growing up and those special times where there weren't cell phones and computers and all the nonsense that goes on that distracts you. He's written a book saying the greatest time to be a kid, which you can get on Amazon. We'll have a link to it on our site, and down below in the description, so you guys can click on it and pick up one of these books. And it's a very easy to read book, very easy to read. And I liked it because the print was kind of a little larger than some books and everything else. But we'll get into a little bit. But let's talk a little about Coach Ozella here. He was born in the Midwest, and which, of course, where the book takes place at. But he has a Bachelor of Science degree in Communications and Journalism from the University of Illinois. He was a social studies teacher at Hart High School for freshmen through seniors. Let me say something. Most coaches I know, and when I coached, and Coach Hart will agree, it's tough enough putting together our everyday's practice schedule and figuring out this and the fundraising and everything else. But to teach 4 or 5 classes a day in social studies, that is number one, a demanding thing, and you have to do your lesson plans. You got to grade the homework. I mean, you're probably talking an extra 3-4 hours a day. How long did you do that? I mean, did you enjoy the subject and teaching it?
I loved teaching U.S. history. I've been a U.S. history teacher from day one at Hart and at Alemany. I taught before. I not only did regular U.S. history classes, I also did advanced placement. So every year I'd be able to talk to or teach our best students. It was really a fun deal. I had a blast with it. Entails a lot of work.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to have a passion for it. On a regular basis, I would probably be at school, somewhere around the 6:30 hour, trying to get my day ready, get myself organized.
Sure.
My schoolwork, I tried to do it at school. My baseball work, I tried to do at home. So there were a lot of times at night I'd be working on, what's going on for the next day's practice. I'd kind of stay away from the grading. Maybe on a weekend, do some grading, bust out some grading. But I love teaching. I always loved it. And to me, it was an extension of what I did out on the field, teaching the classroom, teaching the field. A lot of my players didn't often take me because they knew I was challenging.
Mm-hmm.
But the kids who were usually the players and any student who, took my class, they knew they would, get the subject matter. And at the end of the year, especially in AP, you have a test in May, a national test. If you take the test and you pass it, I always threw a little addition for them. I'd bump your grade up.
Right.
So this past year, which was my last year of teaching AP, I had 17 students in my class, and 16 of the 17 passed the exam. So
nice.
That's on an average, most schools you're looking at 20 to 40% pass rate. And I think down through the years, my kids were usually around 85%. So it was, it was a fun deal. You take a lot of pride in it.
Absolutely.
And it was fun. I always loved it.
It's a great legacy when and you see it in coaching as well, when you're making people better, you're giving them a better opportunity to be successful. I mean, it's that old adage, you're not working a day of your life if you're doing something you love. So
I took a lot of pride in it, and the kids knew it when they came into my class. They knew it that, hey, we're going to work, and coach has got he's got a lesson ready to go, and we're not watching a film unless it's got some interest to what our topic is. So it was just, I learned at a young age, to teach and to coach is basically the same thing.
Yeah.
And, to me, the classroom was an awesome place to be. And then my field was an extension of my classroom.
Yep.
So, when we did baseball, we took it in a serious manner, and the players knew it, and they knew what we were trying to get across.
I think ultimately kids like structure and expectation. And when you raise the bar and you have that, that everyday grind mentality.
I think you hit the nail on the head right there.
Yeah.
When you raise the bar, they get there.
Yeah, they do.
And if you give them an out,
They'll take it.
They're going to try to take an out.
Sure.
And, the fun deal about it, I've had, student athletes, and, we often talk about that, you're a student athlete, if you're a baseball player, and, we took pride in, at the end of every semester, putting up a 3-0 list or putting up a 4-0 list.
Yeah.
And who was on that list. And,
reinforce it.
Yeah. And the kids, bought into that, and they loved it. And, the competition, it's fun to see the competition in the classroom, as well as to see the competition out on the field.
Yeah.
So
I found over all the years, I always had maybe a little prejudice towards it, but I always thought the baseball players were the most intelligent athletes of all the athletes in the, I won't disgrade the other sports right now, but baseball players usually were always near the top of the list when it came to a team GPA, especially when the amount of kids, 50, 60, 70 kids in a baseball program compared to some other programs. But I found that baseball players always seem to be a little, and when you think about it, baseball is a game of, it's an intelligent game. It's not a game of, it's not a reaction game. It's an anticipation game.
correct.
So
Scenarios.
And also, let's think about it. Let's think, baseball players are it's the last season in the high school season. So they wait through football, they wait through basketball, and now finally we get the chance to play.
Yep.
And then what happens? Oh, it rains. Oh, I got to fix the field.
Prom night, senior night.
Prom night. We got a lot of distractions in the spring.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of distractions. Graduation.
And I won't even go into what a coach goes through at the high school level in baseball. Can you imagine a football coach going out before the game and lining his field,
Yeah.
or getting his headphones ready or anything else, or a basketball coach, preparing the stands and everything else, and the sitting.
Infrastructure is huge.
There's always the janitor who will do that, or they have the people who do that. And I always said, if those coaches ever knew the amount of extra work that we all put in just to have our game or our practice, you wonder how many of those other coaches would be sticking around.
Wait a second. How about that snack bar at Burroughs High School, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, that snack
Legendary.
bar, that's legendary, right? I remember that.
And it had the best cheeseburgers in town.
Absolutely.
I guaranteed it.
Absolutely.
Well, let's go back to your Alemany days, and that's how I kind of got to know you originally, when I was at Crespi, and I thought your teams were it was always a great competitive game, and I know you and Scott Muckey, who was my mentor for 25 years, got along famously. And the way I really got to know you was every year we'd have a tournament. At that time, I was doing JV. I was the head JV coach because I wanted to hone my skills for head coaching someday. And every year for our spring break, we called Easter vacation back then, which is still Easter vacation, we'd have a tournament at Alemany. It was a round robin tournament, and every year I would get the 9 a.m. game on both Friday and Saturday, or Tuesday, or whatever, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'd always get the 9 a.m. game. Now, of course, now reading the book, I found I like to be an early riser. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think he liked the fact that he knew that I was, a late night guy, and he'd get me out there. And so, it started the game at 9 a.m. I'd have to, I'd have to leave here by 7 a.m., and get to school, get and the whole thing, and
A little background too. Coach Sherwood doesn't accept phone calls before 10 o'clock.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so-
Absolutely.
And as
Well, I'm going to give you a little story on that, right? So every year we'd set up that schedule, right? And I'd call Scott up and I'd say, hey, Scott, I said, what do you think? You got Crespi playing the first games? He goes, yeah, absolutely. You got to get Coach Sherwood out there early.
That's great.
So you got to get him out there early. I think the one year I had to wake you up. I think I had to wake you up. So I opened up the gate at Alemany and I look out and there he is.
That's
asleep
great.
in the car.
I actually worked at a market back then till 2 a.m. And it was out in that area. I said, you know what, the heck with it. I'm just going to drive over there now and sack out here in the car, and I'm ready to go. And the players that day all drove themselves.
Right.
Or, their parents drove them. So it was, so we got to be our first real, bonding, I would say, because I used to kid him all the time about that. And he'd always get a kick out of it, which, So then he moved over to Hart, and then we actually had a bigger thing. And the thing, I got to know him really well at Hart, not only from watching great teams play, but around I want to say 2010, we there were 6 of us who broke off from American Legion Baseball and started the Valley Instructional Baseball League. And it was mostly Coach Ozella and Coach Mucky who got together and said, let's do this ourselves because Legion's going to make us keep our seniors, which we didn't want to do. We just wanted to keep returning players. So they got together and we started the VIBL, and it was very successful for a long time now until kind of the travel ball things kind of now washed everything away a little bit. But I got to know Coach Ozella very well back then during those days. We'd have a lot of meetings in his classroom, and we'd set things up. And I was always present there and felt appreciated. And which I thought we got to really know each other, and so I appreciated those days. I appreciated because I looked at you like I looked at Coach Mucky. I had a lot of respect for you. You coached the right way. You were not a rah-rah guy. Your players always played with respect. And when we went out there, we knew we were in for a game.
I really appreciate the words, your kind words. It's, it to me, when you talk about the coaching, it's a lot of friends, it's a fraternity. And, we did this for a long, long time. And, when we started the VIBL, it was kind of a funny deal. I walked out of a Legion meeting, and, Legion was the way you did it back in those days. And, Hart had been in Legion before I got the job there in 2000. And the Legion director said to me, he says, well, you need to have your 18-year-old, you need to have your seniors play their final year of Legion. I'm like, well, that doesn't really make sense because they're going off to college and I need to get my team ready for the following year. And I go, what, how many, 25 guys? He goes, no, 18. 18? That just doesn't work. That's 9 guys coming back. That gives me only 9 guys to work with.
Yep.
I go, what about a lower level? No, we don't have a lower level. It's just, Legion was, everything was destined to try to win championships, and my goal was to develop kids and get them better. And so, he says, well, if you don't do it this way, then, maybe we'll take it out of your hands and we'll find somebody else up there. And I'm like, you do that, you can have whatever you want. I go, we're going to do it a different way. And so I walked out and about 5 minutes, I'm getting in my car about 5 minutes later, Scott goes knocking on my door and he's going, hey, what are you going to do? And I go, I'm going to do something, but we're not going to do Legion. And I go, I'll just, I want to play with my guys. I want to develop for the following year. The spring season's over and let's try to get ready for the next season. And I said, where I came from, Midwest, the summer programs were run like that. There really wasn't a whole lot of Legion ball. It was a high school league. And I told him that, and I said, hey, you want to come in? I said, I don't care. We get 5, 6 teams. And I think the first couple of years, we had 6 or maybe 8 teams. And then all of a sudden, guys kind of got on board and said, hey, this is a pretty good deal.
Yep.
And we had, the umpires working with us, the union working with us, and a lot of coordination and a lot of organizing, and it was a first class league. We had all-star games in the mid-season. We used to have a tournament at the end of the season, which was really fun to see. But it was just a way to develop talent. And we really, I remember a number of times Scott used to say, some team would kind of want to come in and, they might not have been very good or whatever. And Scott's like, hey, we need to develop baseball. I go, I hear you.
Yep.
So, some guys, would come in. I'll give you an example. Campbell Hall was in the league for a couple of summers, and, they struggled to win games. And that really wasn't the goal, wasn't to win games. The goal was to develop your talent. And following spring, they'd be pretty good.
Yep.
Well, the rules we had were, I thought, good rules. The head coach had to coach the team.
Yeah.
You couldn't just have fathers and people out there who were the coaches. And in the Legion, we said, hey, well, that's fine. We'll play against your big teams. But they just didn't want to do it. And I think within 5 years, Legion was gone.
Legion was dead.
I went from 25 teams down to 0 because everybody went through VIBL thinking this is, and here was the great thing. And here's what Muck loved besides anything else. He goes, when I write the schedule, I know when I write down July 15th, the season is over.
Yep.
It's not one of these things where you go into another tournament and you're playing for, because, we both got into situations where we're playing all the way until school started, basically. And so where was our vacation?
Right.
Where was the players' vacation?
Yeah, it was about a 6-week program.
Yep.
Maybe 7.
And you're just coming off your season too. So it's, people need time off.
Absolutely. It was always a blast for me to come down to Burbank and play those night games.
Yeah.
Because Santa Clarita is hot, 105, and I come down and play you guys. It's 7 o'clock, and it's 70 degrees, and kids are like, "Hey, this is awesome." Plus, we're playing under the lights, so kind of gives the kids something else
for sure.
Yeah, we always. I'll tell you the truth. We always thought that we had an advantage playing at night because when I was at Crespi, I remember one time we were on a bus and we're headed to St. Francis it was a night game. The kids were all just. I go, what's that? He goes, never played on the lights before. Yeah. And I'm thinking, really? I go, because in Burbank, even all the youth leagues and everything else, it's all under the lights. Mm-hmm. I mean, kids start playing the lights when they're 6 years old. Mm-hmm. So I started looking and thinking about that. That's an advantage to play at night if you're a Burbank person, because the other teams haven't experienced that before. So, and there were times when you'd see guys lose lights and balls and it'd get too high and they wouldn't, so there were those advantages that over the years. So, I know Coach and I both kept that kind of quiet. Here we are. We just put it over the entire world to everybody.
We're on Front Street now. Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Well, let's think about this. One of the hotbeds of high school baseball is Orange County, right? And Orange County has lights. Yep. All those schools have lights.
Yep.
They got parks that have lights. Long Beach, a lot of those. There used to be a high school league down at Blair.
Yeah.
You play under the lights. It's a big deal.
Lakewood, yeah, they turn them out.
Well, let's get back to a little bit of the resume here. Now, Coach Hart and myself always know when you go to Hart, you look at what we call the wall of intimidation, and listed on that wall are league titles, and just alone the league titles that Coach Ozella was involved in. The 2000 Foothill, these are all Foothill League titles in 2000, 2001, 2008, 2014, 2015, 2018, 2021, 2022, and 2024. And he was a D1 finalist in 2015, and of course in 2024 won the whole shebang and got his first CIF title, which I can't believe that was your first one.
Storybook.
But good way to end it, huh?
Yeah.
Good way to end it.
Let's talk about that game a little bit. You're cruising along. Well, I shouldn't say cruising along, but you got into the 7th inning and you got yourself a 1-run lead. Well, excuse my finger, they're hitting the wrong button. I can't believe all the buttons hit. That was the one. Oh my goodness. Well, I'll give myself a little. There we go. Cruising along, I'll say the first guy gets on base, and you think, oh boy, here we go, Next guy launches the ball down the left field line. The umpires, and so number one, I don't know why you're not playing at Dodger Stadium or Anaheim Stadium. The CIF is cheapskates.
Where was that game?
Lake Elsinore.
Like Elsinore. And so
3.5 hours
We were there.
good for
Playoffs,
fans to
yeah.
get out to also.
on a Friday night.
So the ball goes out there, and all of a sudden, you're seeing some guys jump up and down, some guys not, some guys, and the umpires look confused. And so the runner thinks the batter thinks he might have a double, but then all of a sudden they signal home run. So that means that's it. Game's over. Moore Park wins the CIF title. It's all over. Heartbreak for Coach Ozella. But wait a second. That didn't happen. Now let me ask you first. You saw the ball. I'm sure you saw the ball hit the ground and bounce over, right?
I hoped.
Okay.
I hoped.
You saw them.
It was the distance.
But then you saw the home run get called, and they're
Right.
celebrating home plate. The lights are flashing, everything else going on.
Mhm.
But then you're realizing, wait, that ball bounced over. That ball did that. What was going through your mind at that moment? Thinking, probably my last ever argument with an umpire, and I've got to convince him that home run was a double, and there's no video evidence allowed to CIF.
Right.
So you had to go out. So what was that conversation like?
Well, let's kind of go back through that whole deal. So nobody out in the 7th. We're up 1. Ball is hit real well. From our distance, from our vantage point, from the coach's standpoint, we're in the first base dugout. It was hard for us to see.
Mm-hmm.
Right away, from a coaching standpoint, you look at your player's body language.
Right.
And my left fielder, Brady Werther, who was a catcher, we had put him out in left field because he could swing it a little bit, he could hit. His immediate body language was, balls down and the ball's over the fence. Both hands were up. Third base umpire down the line signaled down that the ball was fair, and then didn't see any other sign. Home plate umpire was following him down the line, was trying to get out there to take a good look as well. So the craziness of the whole deal was the third base umpire came back into the infield. When he came back into the infield, he signaled the whirly-bird home run. Now, the operator of the stadium,
Right.
all of a sudden went ballistic on the lights, turned the lights on and off, celebration. Like Moore Park, then they're like looking at each other like not sure either. And so they start celebrating. Guy comes home, steps on home plate. So much to the umpire's credit, as soon as that third base umpire came in, the home plate guy brought everybody together. I stayed out of it.
Oh, so you did not go out.
I did not go out right
Okay.
away. I stayed out of it, let the umpires do their thing, do their job. So it was a very quick discussion. Probably within a couple of minutes, home plate guy's coming back towards me. So now I walked out and I said, real simple. I said, what do we got? I go, do we have a fair ball or foul ball? If it's a foul ball, guy goes back to first. We replay the hitter. Fair ball, foul ball. He goes, it's a fair ball. I go, okay, what do we got? We got double or home run? He goes, we got double. I go, okay, we got second and third. We got nobody out. Let's go. And I turned around and I walked away. And, it was loud. I mean, it's a pretty decent crowd.
And Moore Park had to know that was the right call because I watched, when I saw the video, the first time I saw, being a coach, I watched the third base coach. And he just stood there. He didn't jump up and down, throw his arms up or nothing. So he knew that ball bounced over. So it wasn't that, they knew it. But
There's contention after the game, but
right, they didn't all know it, but the ones who really saw it knew it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but here, here's the thing. Also, is that so now it's not a home run, but so now you're up by 1, and it's second and third, and nobody out.
Our submariner. Now that was about a 5-minute break. We had brought him in the 6th, and he struggled. Probably the first time all year he struggled. I mean, he was pitcher of the year in the Foothill League. I believe he was 4 or 5-1, 8 or 9 saves. He was a dude for us all year.
Love submariners.
Ian Edwards. Well, we converted him.
Yeah, I love those guys.
We love those guys. About 5 minutes now, and second and third, nobody out. And in the 6th, when I went out to talk to him, the biggest problem with him sometimes during the year was he would get too excited and the arm angle would come up instead of stay down. When it stays down, it turns over and it rolls. When it comes up, it flattens out. So he came into the game. We're 2 outs in the 6th. We had a 7-2 lead at the time. Brought him in. I said, "Hey, you ready to close it up?" "Yeah, I'm ready to close." But he was juiced up. He was fired up, and he kind of wanted to throw the ball by some people. And they, Moorpark had
good program.
A good program, and they had in the playoffs a number of times made comebacks. And I told our players that. I said, "Hey, this is a team, and we got to get them. Once we get them down, we got to get them." Now we let them back in the game, 7-6. Okay. But I think the 5 minutes or so, 7 minutes or so, gave him time to kind of catch his breath. His teammates were out there. They were in his pocket. I'm not taking him out. We're either going to win or we're going to lose with Ian Edwards.
Well, that's your guy.
That's my guy.
Yeah, and that's because you would always second guess yourself if you had gone somebody else.
I go somewhere else, and and I don't know if anybody else would have been able to handle the situation. So his next pitch I saw was back down in the lower angle, and all of a sudden the ball's rolling again. It's running into the right-hander. Guy gets a pretty good swing on it, hits a line drive at our third baseman.
Third baseman, nice
our
play.
Third baseman makes the catch. He's a very good Michael Hogan, outstanding defensive player, makes the catch. 1 out. Ball back to Ian. All of a sudden, Ian's now got a little bit more. Yeah, I think I got this. Next pitch, another fastball in, jams the guy, weak ground ball to shortstop. Shortstop, Braden Jeffries picks it up, easy out. We hold the runner. Second and third, now 2 outs. Goes after the next guy. Again, fastball runs in, jams him, pop up down the right field line. Our right fielder comes in, Matthew Perez comes in, makes the catch. The list, it goes crazy. Our guys,
probably the most
dog pile.
Could be the most dramatic inning ever.
High school
CIF,
baseball.
Yeah, and to decide a championship.
It was very
Epic,
exciting. Your heart was in both hands,
Sure.
Like one pitch, hey, we lost. One pitch, it's over, and our kids, we dogpiled a lot this year. It was a great year for us. They dogpiled, and we always tell them at Hart, down through the years, we live for the dogpile.
Yep.
That's what it's all about. You live for the dogpile. Now you got to understand one thing with the dogpile. You don't dogpile when it's a blowout.
Right.
And that's something we always prided ourselves on at Hart, was being able to play the game late.
Yep.
Being able to play the game late. And we played it late one more time.
Nice.
And play consistently the whole game too. But
their guy was their left-hander was a tough guy. We hit him well. I thought we could have knocked him out early, and he hung in there, and he kind of kept them in the game a little bit. I mean, we had a chance to blow that game open more than once, and he did a great job. But I thought early on we had a good plan offensively, and put the bat to the ball a lot.
Yeah.
But credit to them. It's high school baseball. High school baseball. A lot of guys are excited to play.
Well, in all the years you coached, I just realized when I was counting things up today, 682 career high school wins for you. That's an amazing. I mean, 500 has always bin the huge mark.
Big number.
682.
How many losses?
Well, you know what? We don't count the losses up. I saw the records, but I said,
you guys, come on now. You remember those losses bad, don't you?
I try to flush them.
They make they
now the flushing noise. Wait a second. Where was that noise? There we go. There we go. Flush those losses.
I've been blessed. A lot of great teams, a lot of great players. we've lost some tough games. We were in the CIF Championship years ago, Huntington Beach. Huntington Beach was loaded with talent. We lost 3-1. It's a great game.
Yep.
We made it to the semifinals a couple other times, quarterfinals, and lost some tough games. You go home, you don't sleep very well, and you try to get up the next day and turn the page.
Yep.
But this time here, it was a fun trip home.
Not bad.
I don't think people realize, and I was lucky enough to be involved in a CIF championship. I won one and lost one. And what people don't realize is not only in that game, but in the run, how many times things just happen to go your way compared to when you lose in the playoffs and something didn't go your way. But how many times, because we won our semifinal game and our final game, both 1-0.
There you go.
And how many times, and numerous times, the other team had runners on second and third, or man on third, or man on second, 2 outs. And we made the play every time. And it wasn't a base hit, it was a ground ball to short or whatever it was. But how many times can it also be a ground ball up the middle and a base hit and 2-run score and your season's over? So if you look at when you win a championship, how many times, and it's not luck. Because luck is a combination of skill and hard work. I think everybody, coaches know that. But it's the way baseball is. And I was very fortunate. I went back and looked at the season. I said, wow, look at all those opportunities for something that could have gone against us, and it didn't. It just went in our favor.
Well, are you ready? Our first round game, 14 innings.
Yep.
Against Simi Valley. Early in the year, Simi Valley beat us at Simi Valley in a 1-run game. They beat our ace, Troy Cooper. So we go, we're hosting Simi at our place. And I told the Simi guy, I said, Scott, I kind of had a feeling we were going to play each other. He looked at me and he goes, I didn't really want to play you again. And I go, I hear you. And I go, but you know what? We got 2 proud programs.
Yep.
I go, let's go out today and play. Well, here you go. You ready? We're down 2 in the bottom of the 7th with 1 out. And our left fielder, Brady Werther, 2-run homer, tie the game. Extra innings. 14 innings. We bring Cooper in to pitch innings 8 through 14. 1 hitter. So the game went back and forth. They scored a run off of him on an error. We came back, Werther with another big hit to tie the game again, and then we end up dogpiling in the 14th. It was last inning.
Yep.
If we hadn't scored in the 14th, we'd be coming back the next day to play the 15th, and you know how that'd be a tough deal.
Yep.
To get your kids up after 14, you've run out of pitching. We used Edwards. We used our second starter. We used Cooper. Now we'd be down to our 3rd, 4th, 5th guy.
Yep.
And I know they'd be in the same boat as us, but so yeah, a lot of luck, a lot of performance, a lot of fun, a lot of excitement. It was fun this year. We, went to Newport Harbor, went out after Newport Harbor. We went out to Riverside to play Arlington. Both those teams were outstanding. And then we had to play Arcadia in the semifinals at our place.
Yep.
So, it was a challenging run. As you guys all know, Division I, Division II, Division III, Division IV, Southern California.
Yeah. Baseball here.
It's a grind.
Well,
sure.
Let's talk real fast because we want to get into your book, absolutely. But last thing I just kind of want to mention is you're talking about some of these great players this year, but you've had some pretty damn good players over the past. I was lucky that I've coached a couple of kids who went on to, but nowhere near the numbers that you coached, who've made it onto the show or Major League Baseball or whatever it is. And right now I know Tyler Glass now, who was one of your guys, is with the Dodgers right now and maybe having the best year of his life. I just got picked for his first All-Star team. Let's run down some of the players that played for you that have made it to the show. You have a list of those?
Yeah, I sure do.
Run down that list.
Let's go to the Alemany too.
Yeah, okay,
We got
absolutely.
we have two
Yes,
Alemany guys.
that's absolutely true. Yes,
Two Alemany guys. We have a guy, left-handed pitcher by the name of Joe Ozella.
right.
Right, pitched for the Giants in the big leagues. Was outstanding. We had a third baseman by the name of Andy Dominique, who went to Nevada Reno, and I believe is still.
Well, all these memories you're bringing up of these people.
How about those names, huh?
I remember,
Bring back those names, huh? Andy went to Nevada Reno. I believe he's still maybe the home run RBI leader in history there. My first guy at Hart, I took over in 2000. In 1999, Bud Murray, in his last game, won the CIF Championship.
How ironic is
How
that?
about that, huh? And his the top player on that team was James Shields. All right? Not too many people called him James back in those days. It was Jamie Shields. And he was a two-way guy at Hart, and he pitched in the major leagues for quite some time with a lot of success. I believe he won a World Series.
Right.
Shieldsy was outstanding. We had the Valleca brothers. Okay, we were blessed to have. I had a run of years where it was pretty easy for me to write the lineup. And shortstop today is Valleca, and 3 years later the shortstop is Valleca, and 3 years later the shortstop is Valleca.
Yep.
So Chris Valleca played for us, played in the big leagues. Right now, I'm for all the listeners. Probably one of the top teams in Major League Baseball right now are the Cleveland Guardians, and Chris is the hitting coach. Been hitting coach there for a couple of years. Does an outstanding job. We were blessed with him and Pat, both in the big leagues. Pat's retired. Chris is still in the game. Trevor Bauer pitched at UCLA, was pitcher of the year. I think Golden Spikes winner. Pitched in the big leagues for
Dominant.
a few dominant years here.
Did he do that sword thing or whatever back in high school? Was that
He
something that
he was an interesting character, but he could pitch. And let me put it to you real bluntly. Trevor knew the game, knew how to pitch, was outstanding. Probably one of the hardest workers we've ever had in our history. No doubt about it.
I watched him on his YouTube channel all the time, and I really enjoy the videos. I enjoy listening to his thought process.
Mm-hmm.
He's really analytical and what he does. And, I would recommend to young players to actually watch some of those videos and learn things about.
He knows the game. He knows how to pitch. He knows how to break it down.
His dad actually came out and did a throwing clinic with some of our guys.
Mm-hmm.
So they were pretty serious guys.
Oh yeah, they get after it.
Yeah.
Steve Sustorf, remember that left-handed hitting guy who went to Fresno? Was one of our first national champions. He was on the national championship team at Fresno. Was outstanding. Had a great career. He's still involved in the program, and the alumni, comes out every year. Our alumni games are getting big. They were getting bigger and bigger as I left. Probably one of the big names, obviously, Michael Montgomery, big tall left-hander for us, was a first rounder. Mike's the guy who threw the last out for the Cubs, got the Cubs the World Series. He was on the mound for that last out. If you remember that ground ball to Chris Bryant over there at third base.
Yep.
Mike had come into that game, and I believe that was extra. Oh, by the way, in that game, both Trevor Bauer and Mike pitched in that ball game. And my wife and I were watching that World Series game.
That's great.
And I'm like, oh boy, this is a little nerve-wracking here. And, they're saying, hey, Montgomery's in the bullpen. Well, he had been up in the bullpen like 4 or 5 times during the game. And I'm still close with him. And, there's a guy, he's pitched, I don't know if you guys know that he's been in Major League Baseball or independent baseball now for 17 straight years.
Crazy.
17 straight years. He right now pitching for the Long Island Ducks in independent ball and still trying to.
He just loves the game.
See if he can make it back, and
But he loves the game. You're not in the game that long unless you love the game. Also, you're not doing it because you have to prove anything. You're doing it because you love the game, and if you happen to make it, that's even better. But he appreciates.
You want to know one of the big things for him now? He's got a son who's, I believe, 5 years of age, and he just loves having his son out at the ballpark with him.
Sure.
And teaching his kid baseball and teaching his kids some of the values of life.
Well, those guys, in my experience, and I don't have that type of experience, but the real good players seem to love the process. It's not just the game; it's the everyday grind, and your guys and your coaches, and that all adds up to a great thing, something memorable.
Teammates.
Yeah.
How many teammates hanging around and doing all that. Trevor Brown was a catcher for the Giants. Played at UCLA. He played with the Giants. Trevor was one of our. He was an interesting player for us because he played multiple positions. Played center field, played shortstop, played third base. He even actually pitched a little bit his senior year and was a catcher. So he got into pro ball. Glasnow graduated in 2011, and then Pat Valleca. So, we're blessed at Hart. The kids who came through the gate followed a tradition. It was a proud tradition. I just kind of took it over from Bud, and Bud took it over from Frank Sanchez. Frankie was, the head coach at Pepperdine for a few years. So it was, it's a fun environment for my 25 years to be there. When the families are into it, when the traditions, based on developing and being successful, success breeds success.
Yeah, it becomes it just kind of feeds itself almost to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
And your reputation, obviously, people are going to want to play for somebody like you. So,
well, it was. To be honest with you, I had very few problems in 25 years, and it's really been a blessing for me to be involved with, my parents. Let's think about the Valleca family, right? Both mom and dad. Dad just passed away recently, but mom is still with us. Highly involved in the dugout club. Always involved in helping out the program, fundraising.
It's been over a decade with that family too.
Let's think about it. Four guys played.
Yeah.
Four guys played. Four guys played. Four guys got drafted. Two of them played in the major leagues. Outstanding kids, outstanding family.
Relationships matter.
Yes.
Do.
Absolutely they do.
And the beautiful thing about all those kids that, we just talked about is all their parents were highly involved in their careers. None of these kids were on their own.
Yep.
We went to Dodger Stadium, one of Tyler's last starts, and we're getting ready to walk in, getting some tickets from Tyler and walking over to get the tickets, and there's his mom and dad.
Yep.
So we sat with them during the game and, had ourselves a blast. And
that's great.
Talked about, how their lives are and what's going on. And I told them at the time, I said, hey, you got about 3 weeks left before you're going to Texas. And they're like, what are you talking about? I go, Tyler's making the All-Star team. And they're like, you think so? And I go, yeah, he's making it.
Yeah.
Yeah, leading National League in
strikeouts. And he is such a great kid. It's great to see the success. And, I know a lot of talk this year when he came to the Dodgers about, he's injury prone and all that. And I said, hey, listen, everybody, I told all the reporters, I said, he's going to have a big year. And I said, he's over his health problems. He works hard. He's a great athlete. And I go, he's passionate about it. Those things usually lead to success.
Coming home too.
Dodgers did a nice behind the scenes with his family too, with his parents and growing up, and they talked finally about Hart and everything else in the day. But let's talk about. We love having you here. I'd have you here if you didn't write the book, but you did write the book. And once again, the book, The Greatest Time to Be a Kid. It's an easy page turner. I was able to read it very easily. A little over 200 pages, so it's not an epic novel, but it's I don't know how do you say it, charming. It's the
Wonder Years.
Yeah, it's
the Wonder Years.
Yeah, exactly. It's something in that regard. So it's about you in the Midwest growing up, and it's about what ages does this cover? What's the starting age to the ending age?
You're looking at the 4 stories that I wrote were about the age of 8 to 9 to 10, somewhere in that area. So it was, I was born in 1958. So around 1965, 66, 67. And that time period is.
Well, my friend, how did you remember so much of that stuff in such detail? I look back at my days and I can remember some really good experiences, but the detail you have is tremendous.
Well, I kind of went back a little bit and kind of thought back about how fun those times were. And, when you experience those things, the memories kind of, I'm one of those old dogs who kind of remembers things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just, a lot of the experiences were talked about a lot in family. I was blessed with two great parents who.
And your sisters? You have
my sisters. I have three sisters. Yes.
What was the age difference between you and the younger sister?
My youngest sister was, she was in high school, in her late high school years when I was growing up and moving into college. So there's a little bit of a difference in ages of about 9 years.
You're the first boy in the family.
Baby. I'm the baby of the family, and my parents were a little older at the time, so I was it. To them, and we moved into a neighborhood, this Ingalls Park neighborhood, in which there were a lot of kids just like me.
Well, let's talk about one of the experiences you had. And it's funny, you look at the movie The Sandlot.
Yes.
And I'm reading through this, and I'm reading about you have the ball, and you're down, you're playing, and all of a sudden you hit the ball, and it rolls into the lady's yard.
Yeah.
And she comes out, and she grabs the ball and says, "The heck with you guys," and took your ball, and game over. So,
yeah.
I mean, but the whole experience sounded a lot like the Sandlot movie in a way. So,
it was a neighborhood where we walked to school, which was St. Mary Magdalene, which was a private Catholic school, was 5 houses down the street from where I lived. Pretty much all the kids in the neighborhood went to that school. So we saw each other on a daily basis during school. And then during summer, we're not going to lose that. We got together and we'd get on our bikes.
Yep.
And let's not kid ourselves, it was a simpler time.
Absolutely.
It wasn't a time where you had to call in and check in with mom and dad. Mom and dad trusted you and they let you go out. They knew everybody. They knew all the kids. They took care of the kids as well as you. Mom and dad were mom and dad to 20 other kids in the neighborhood.
Right. Sounds like you had a lot of meals at a lot of houses.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody shared. Everybody shared. Yeah. It was, hey, I'm going over to the Morris house and the Morris family. They'd be cooking hamburgers for the kids.
Yep.
It was that kind of a time.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm a transplanted Midwesterner and it was simpler time. I came from a low income family. Dad worked in a factory, blue collar. We had one car. Mom was housewife, took care of the kids. Fixed, had her sewing machine.
But I didn't read in the book where you felt disadvantaged or you didn't have something, or it always read as though everything. There was never the situation.
No
income. It was not about income. It was about experiences.
It was about providing for their kids.
Yep.
Providing for their kids, and I was the last one. The other 3 sisters are out the house starting their families. And, they took care of me and, we lived a life that I can't say I was just blessed.
Yeah.
Now, you, I guess, were a St. Louis Cardinals fan.
I was a St. Louis Cardinals fan.
And you had a friend, Danny, who took you to a doubleheader, and the Cubs beat up the Cardinals twice.
Yes.
And then you had to hear about it
all right home.
So why were you a Cardinals fan and not a Cubs fan? And what was that experience?
Well, I grew up in Joliet, which is, about an hour and a half outside Chicago. Most of the kids in the neighborhood were Cubs fans. Not too many White Sox fans. The Cubs were on TV, WGN, on a daily basis. It was always a good thing to, go out and play and come back home and have lunch and sit down and watch the Cubs play on TV. Now don't forget that's 1960s. So, we're talking some great players back in those days.
And if you watch those games as much as we could, here we're lucky to see the Dodgers on Channel 11 every Sunday. And of course, they went up to play San Francisco. We'd see those games. Mm-hmm. Besides that, we had no experience with television and the Dodgers whatsoever in the 60s and the 70s. I
think to a certain degree that gave us a little better appreciation or more appreciation because it wasn't on all the time.
Right.
So,
But one of the blessings also was transistor radio.
Absolutely.
Remember back in those days, your transistor? Yeah. And so my little transistor, I became a Cardinal fan for a simple reason. The Cardinals were winners.
Yeah.
And I loved when I grew up the uniform. Yeah. The two birds on the bats.
Great organization.
It was just I grew up and I used to be able to get on my transistor and it was fuzzy. The feed from St. Louis, from Busch Stadium. Mm-hmm. The Harry Carey and those days, yep. and those were the days of the Cardinals.
Yep.
And so I loved watching WGN because the Cubs had all these teams coming in. And then when the Cardinals came in, boy, oh boy, after lunch, I wasn't going out. I was going to stay in and watch that game for sure.
Yeah.
So it was just it was a time period of being locked into learning the game. My dad was a baseball coach, coached in the Pony League levels. Mom and dad, that was their deal. We lived not too far away from the Pony League.
Your dad was had a good team.
Yeah, he was,
because he had a friend who was dying to play for him and thought about not playing baseball at all if he didn't get drafted by your dad.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it sounds like he had a pretty good, you got a kind of a basic in coaching or understanding of how.
He had a passion for it.
Right.
He had a passion for it. At a young age, he had tried out for the St. Louis Browns. And, he was, I guess, a pretty good ball player. According to him, a real good ball player.
Sure.
But he had a passion for it, and he loved the game. And he passed that down to me.
What, did you ever get to play for the Browns in spring training at all? Or,
no, I think he just had a tryout.
The Browns actually worked out here in Burbank in spring training.
Yeah,
this was their spring training location
Olive
for
Park.
A few years. Olive Park, yeah,
that's awesome. But he passed it down, and we'd watch games together, and he'd teach me, the intricacies of the game, how to keep score. And sure, in those early days, I was a bat boy, and I found out, hey, you start chasing foul balls, I can get some free candy, and
yep.
Get that foul ball and bring it over to the, and you get yourself a Tootsie Roll, so that's how you lived. We lived at the ballpark all the time.
Yeah,
we lived at the Pony League, and it had lights, and there was a 5 o'clock game or 6 o'clock, I forget the time, but 5 o'clock game and 7 o'clock game. And we were there from, 4 o'clock. My dad would get off of work, and
it's a lifestyle.
Yeah, we were there.
Yeah. Then we kind of move into Braidwood. And one of the stories I enjoyed reading, was your interpretation of going off the high dive. And, it was, of course, the other guys are always, no problem at all. So that was a big moment when all of a sudden you decided, okay, I'm going to, no problem. I'm going to do this. And I'm going to show that lifeguard that, I can swim and everything else. And
well, I'll be honest with you. I was a scaredy cat. I wasn't sure about that high dive, and then my buddy Danny, he kind of was one of those kids who was
fearless.
And he's like, hey, don't look down, and, just let it fly. And, and then after you get over that initial fear, and it becomes, wow, this is really not that big a deal.
Yeah.
And, as a young kid, you're growing up and you're overcoming your fears, and confidence grows. And, and that lifetime friend, that Danny Tallarico, I mean, he meant everything to me because we lived life together. And
yep.
So it was, overcoming that fear was a big deal.
Yeah, you guys were inseparable, though. It seems like everything you guys did together and everything else. And, and then we talk about Bass Lake, who I was reading about Bass Lake, and Your experience, of course, swimming out to the island, which probably you shouldn't have been doing, naughty boy. And
well, as a young kid, not everything is follow the rules, right?
Well, yeah. And Danny's slogan was expect the unexpected.
Yep.
So talk a little about those experiences.
Yeah, Braidwood was our vacation spot. My parents had joined Braidwood when it opened. It was a recreation club. It had, probably 15 to 20 old strip mines that they made into lakes. And most of the lakes they stocked with fish. One lake was the swimming area. And so we lived there. On weekends, that's where we went. That was our vacation. I didn't leave my hometown until 8 or 9 years of age. And where did we go? We went to a St. Louis Cardinals game. That's where we went. One of the truck drivers in my dad's came into my dad's factory, and he said, hey, your son's still Cardinal fan? He goes, yeah. He goes, yeah, I'll get you tickets. And so he got 3 tickets. And so one of the first times I ever left my hometown, we went to St. Louis for a Cardinal game on a Saturday, and it was a huge deal. It was, I had an old uniform, and it was like, hey, I'm going to wear that uniform. And we got to the ballpark early, and my, it was, the experience of a lifetime. You want to talk about dream and sleep, and on the way back home, think about what as a little kid, this was what it was all about. But Braidwood was where we Saturdays and Sundays. Was where my parents went to get their break from life.
And it sounded to me like your parents knew what you were up to really all the time, and would just kind of question a little about it and say, well, they knew what you were up to. Like I say, swimming out to that island, and
the island deal was a real step out on our adventures, right? We wanted to catch some fish. And we saw this guy out in a boat.
And you met a couple of friends there too.
Oh, yeah,
have you kept up with those 2 other guys?
I've never. No, Danny Tallarico. Still, I'm in contact with him.
Okay,
we email each other all the time, and he lives up in the Dakotas. And it was a little bit of an adventure. We shouldn't have done it, but we ran into a few snakes, and
teaches you navigation, right?
Teaches you some lessons in life, Don't forget, Mom and Dad, found out about it, and
you came honest with them though. You didn't.
Yeah, they let me put my foot in my mouth a little bit. They let me talk a little bit. And
give you a little rope.
They gave me a little rope, and then they pulled the rope in and said, hey, we think we know a little bit more about this adventure. And I went, uh-oh.
Sounds like Stand By Me.
Right.
Yeah,
that's what a lot of this book sounds like. It sounds like you put Stand By Me and the Sandlot, a lot of these little stories, and that's where I'm sure that these stories and these movies came from, was personal experiences. But it sounds like you've experienced a lot of these types of experiences.
Well,
which is what the Midwest is. That's not so much how California was.
Yeah, the first story is about taking everybody and going down to the Pony League and playing over the line.
Right.
And for baseball coaches and baseball players, everybody knows what over the line is. Somebody who's never done it might not know what over the line is, And so, you go down there and you play because you want to play, you want to have fun with your buddies, and you have a little bit of a time where, hey, we need to get a breather, and we sit down and talk stories and talk about what's going on with our lives, And
I wonder if that's maybe kind of where your coaching a little bit started, because you had that one younger kid who jumped on the back of your bike, and you took him down there, and who had never had a hit, and they hit him, the ball got hit to him, and he made the catch,
and then got it hit. Was involved.
But you were coaching him along. Hey, don't worry about it. We'll get
his big brother. The family situation. Those brothers all stuck together, and they lived with each other, and it was a fun experience to see those guys on a daily basis. By the time I was being raised, I was home by myself. A lot of my friends had brothers and sisters, right. and it was cool to see those little brothers and take care of them.
Yep.
The last chapter of the book, I opened it up and in chapter 4, and it's entitled Big Daddy.
Daddy.
And there's a picture of a bicycle there. I'm thinking, oh, okay. Because when I was young, I had my Schwinn Stingray, and handlebars, and I did the paper routes and everything else. And okay, so you were to hear about his bike. He probably called Big Daddy. The bike had nothing to do with it whatsoever. Big Daddy was your next door neighbor, who was named Big Daddy because he drove a big Cadillac, I guess, and all the kids.
He was a big man.
All the kids called him Big Daddy being in his Cadillac.
He was a big man. He was drove the Cadillac. When he went down the street, everybody knew who he was.
It was Big Daddy.
He'd honk the horn. He'd wave at everybody. He was a gentle giant. One of those guys who, took care of the community. He was a businessman. He made quite a bit of money. Was successful, and I had a little experience with his dog.
Well, yeah, let's talk about the experience with the dog, with Barney.
Yeah, Barney got me.
Yeah, you're down in Penn, all of a sudden, Barney decided, I like his face.
Yeah, he got me. Yeah.
And there's actually a picture in the book of you at, I guess, a team photo day, and you've got the big patch and everything.
Patch over my eye.
But you're smiling. You're not saying, I don't think you're happy as can be because you're in a baseball uniform out in the yard. But so Barney came after you a little bit, and you had to have surgery.
I had to have some surgery.
But it sounds like Big Daddy felt terrible about it and really made it up to you as time went on with jobs and bringing.
He was unbelievable. He again, there you are, single. My dad, the only one who was working. Trying to later on getting jobs and stuff like that. But he felt sorry about the whole deal. He wanted to make it up for him. So I ended up cutting his grass. I kind of prided myself on doing things the right way. And, he thought that I did our yard well. And so his yard was a lot bigger than ours. It was probably about, 4 times the size of our yard. And then he, after a little bit of time said, hey, I have a swimming pool. Can you help clean the pool? And I said, are you kidding me? I get to, clean the swimming pool? Absolutely. He goes, oh yeah, you want to swim too? And I'm like, wow, this really makes my day. It really makes my day. And later on in life, when I was in high school, he was a lather, and he was involved in building, buildings. And so when I got to 16 years of age, he drove back over to our house and told my dad, he goes, well, I think the kid's ready. He goes, what do you think? He goes, you think the kid's ready to get some real serious work in now? And I'm like, oh boy. So I did some lathing jobs for him, carried some buckets of lath, and I was on the construction site at a young age and, playing high school baseball at that time and, working during the day and going out and playing a game at night wasn't real easy, but again, a life lesson.
Sure.
Big Daddy, he was a legend in the neighborhood. And a legend in the school and a legend in the neighborhood for everybody. So
sometimes it amazes me, like the people that impact your life when you look back on, your youth and your book or whatever it is. The people that seemingly wasn't a big deal, but it's stuff that sticks with you, and it's indelible.
You remember those people forever.
Sure, you do.
You do. You remember those people. I mean, I had my dad's brother, my Uncle Joe. Was a guy who fought in World War II, and he didn't have kids when at a young age, and he used to come over all the time and take care of us, and he was so interested in so I mean, all those people who have an impact in your life, I mean, come on, guys, your high school baseball coach, your coaches, had an impact. That's why I got into coaching.
Sure.
My high school coach, helped turn my life around. I was in a high school environment, and I remember the first time I went and talked to my counselor, and my counselor said, "Hey, here's the classes that you're going to take," and I'm like, "Those aren't very challenging classes." And she looked at me and said, "Well, your dad works in a factory."
Wow.
Yeah, you're Italian American. Your dad works in a factory, and you probably should just worry about maybe graduating from high school. And I said to her, my mom and dad want me to go to college. And so I walked in and saw my high school coach, and he said, "Hey, I'll get you in the classes you need to be in." And that was what, that was what really, and I actually coached with that guy, Tom Deeden. He was the head coach at the University of Illinois, and later on I coached with him for 3 years. So, those guys are meaningful.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if the next book is going to be about the high school years, maybe, and because it sounds like that was a very unique time, also a unique, challenging time for you.
Yeah, I think right now I've got a lot of ideas on my mind as to kind of what maybe another book might be someday. But right now I'm kind of enjoying my summer a little bit, and helping raise my grandkids, and kind of where we are on that.
Well, sorry, it sounds like we have a little bit of static here and there on the show, but that's okay. It's what we're talking about, not the sound here. So
right.
So how successful has the book been since you? I mean, what have you? What's the feedback you've gotten now that the book is out and around, and people kind of know?
I've gotten a lot of feedback from people who have told me I lived a similar life.
Yes.
I lived a similar life. Life was very similar to me. A couple of my coaching friends from Long Beach actually sent me pictures of their little league teams that they were on, and it's almost identical to the picture that I had.
When I was reading it, I was thinking the same thing. It mirrors so much of my life, simpler times, drinking out of a hose,
Yeah.
simple stuff.
Those days, and not just people who are of my age. Okay, I mean, like I said, I was born in '58. I have some people, fellow coaches, some other people who are, have bought the book and said, hey, I was raised in the '70s, I was raised in the '80s, and it was a similar time.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
I think cell phones now and all that, and the internet has ruined that age of innocence, if anything, I think now that, kids would rather get on that phone now and play a video game or watch a TikTok video than, grab their bat and ball and go out and play over the line or hit the bat or all those great games that, used to play. Even go out and by yourself, go get a pitch back and throw the ball against the pitch back,
The wall, yeah.
Throw the ball against the wall, yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, the book is from a time period, a little bit more simplicity. But you know what? Those simple days were fun days.
Hmm.
And those simple days gave me some lessons. And those lessons were, I think, turned me into the man that I am today.
Mm-hmm.
And let's not kid ourselves. My wife and I, we have 3 kids. And we tried to raise our 3 kids a little bit of a simpler way than, maybe some others. And now we have 3 grandkids, and, we're trying to kind of pass that along to them, go to the swimming pool and, have fun and get away from the phone and get away from the internet and
time with the people you love,
Yeah, that's it. Be around the family and
sure.
So what's up for Jim Ozella in the retirement years now? What's your?
I don't. My plans.
Did you retire from Hart High School?
Yeah, I retired from teaching.
So that's it. You're done.
Yeah.
You're no more getting up at 6 a.m. anymore.
Well,
I'm sure
it's kind of a tough habit to break.
I'm gonna say you probably still are if I know you after reading the book. But
yeah, I'm up early. I'm over. I don't live too far from Central Park in Saugus, and so by 7 o'clock, I'm doing a little walking these days, trying to get my body back in a little better shape than it was. I kind of neglected it for a few years.
Sure.
what
But
do you want to do with the next few years?
I really want to. I want to kind of enjoy life a little bit right now, and I might stay in coaching if something is available out there that I like. I want to. Maybe I'll do that. No guarantee. I'm not really. I haven't really set any plans, Craig. And I think if something pops up, something happens, and it's a scenario that I like, and it's a scenario that I think works for Jim Ozella, I'll probably do that.
Yeah, I've kind of just gone through the same thing. I've taken a few years off, and it's funny after you've taken some time off, how number one, it will draw you back, but your perspective changes a little bit, and how you feel you have to be successful and you have to be this and that, and you really don't.
Right.
And I think I've learned that now. I think it's more about the experience than it is about, the pressure of and I think if you find the right situation, I think you're going to really enjoy teaching what you have, because you've got a lot of experience. You've seen a lot of things, and those little tidbits can mean a whole difference to a kid.
I've had a lot of people reach out to me and say, "Hey, so how's retirement going?" And I go, "Well, it's like a book. There's two sides to it. I go, the good side is that I'm around family more. I'm seeing the grandkids grow up a little bit more. Like I said, I'm trying to take care of the body a little bit more." I go, but there's the other side, and I miss the relationships.
Yep.
I miss the relationships with the players.
Yes.
I miss the relationships with the coaches. I miss the relationships with other coaches, opposing coaches. And I've seen some of the opposing coaches that, I ran into the El Camino coach, Josh Leinert, and I saw him, and hey, how are things going? I miss talking to those guys.
Yep.
And I'm going to be up front, and I'm going to be honest with you, I miss the competition. I miss the dugout. I really miss in the dugout, I miss the chatter.
Yes.
I miss the chatter. You remember there's that little scene in, Robert Redford's about ready to hit the home run, right? And, the dugout chatter, come on. And I mean, I miss that.
Yeah.
I miss that. I miss, patting guys on the back and seeing guys reach their goals. I miss the dog pile.
Yeah.
And I've only been out of it, since June 1st. I've only been out of it since June 1st. And here we are, 6 weeks later. And so I got to find the right spot where that can still happen. If I don't, then I'll have to make more lifestyle changes or whatever. But two sides to the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm lucky enough that I think I might have found that also. I'm going to go back with Bob and spend time again with him, and
it's outstanding.
And
it's outstanding.
I'm not physically what I used to be, but yeah, I think mentally I'm still there. But I have a new appreciation for the game, and it's very nice that Bob would take me back, but I had some other offers, and I just didn't want to do it. It just, if you get to the point where you want to get to the right situation with the right people, and if you don't have that, it's just not worth doing it.
I agree with you completely. The right people is very important.
Yep.
The right situation. For the longest time, I was 24/7 on the job, 365.
Yes. So, yeah.
I was on this job all the time. Fall ball, winter ball. Here comes the spring, summer ball. A couple weeks off before school starts again. Hey, let's get it going. Let's ramp it up for the teaching. Let's ramp it up for the coaching. And, like every year I took a pride in acting like it's a whole new ball game for me. So for me, it was like at Hart, 25 new years. That's what I put into it. But, after a while, it can wear you down. And so right now, I love the game still. There's no doubt. I watch the game nonstop. I mean, I got the MLB channel, and I watch Chris Valleca's team, the Guardians, play. I love the Guardians. I think they play the game.
I think they're the best record in baseball right now. Yeah.
Yeah, they play the game the right way. I love seeing guys like Stephen Kwan, who is not the biggest guy in the world, but he's leading the league in hit, and he knows what his talents are and how I can be successful. And I know a lot of that comes from Chris Valleca. And so, I mean, I watched the game. We've gone and seen Tyler pitch a few times at Dodger Stadium. I mean, I love watching him pitch. I love seeing the progression that he's made, the growth that he's made. I mean, I joke around a lot with people and say, back in high school, he was a knucklehead, and,
weren't they all though?
They were all knuckleheads, but, he's grown up. And I mean, if you hear him interview today, I mean, it's quite impressive.
Yeah.
It really is. It's quite impressive. And, I said that to his mom and dad too. So, I mean, and they laugh about it, but it's, I still love the game, and I still, college baseball, just the other day with the draft, I was on the draft, I was watching it, and, some of the names, Bryce Rainier, the kid from Harvard Westlake, we always played them in winter ball. And so I know him, and I've seen, a lot of the game, and I think I can coach. I believe I'm a real good coach. And if it's destined for it, I'll be back in it. And if it's not,
I think the things I always admired, one of the things I admired most about your teams were the fact that the players seemed to play for each other rather than themselves. They played for the team. They were willing to do whatever it took to make the team good, not so concerned with individual achievement. I mean, when you do that, some of that individual achievement is going to occur anyways. But I kind of feel like when you're playing for the team, it takes you through the highs and the lows.
I think a lot of that has to do with the tradition of Hart.
Yep.
I think the tradition of Hart, and we pushed it, we developed it, we grew it, but
it's a culture.
It's a culture. You're absolutely right. And there's nothing better than seeing Mike Montgomery come out on the field and play catch with you.
Yep.
Or it's great to see Chris Valleca out there taking ground balls, or Pat Valleca coming out and taking some BP,
yep.
Or Tyler this year. Tyler came out and talked to our team for about 2.5 hours, right? About 2.5 hours. And it was unbelievable. I mean, it was a rainy day. He came to the classroom. He gave the kids stories. He told them, hey, Coach Ozella can be hard, and, but he wants the best for you. And he got done talking, and I said to him, hey, players, Tyler said he'll sign autographs. You got an hour. So, all of a sudden, brand new baseballs were coming out of their bags.
Yeah.
I don't know where they came from, but
right.
Yeah.
There they were. And it was kind of funny. And Tyler said something, Coach, where'd they get all these baseballs? I go,
yeah,
they've been in their bags.
You knew they came from. They came from you throw a dozen out there, and all of a sudden there's 11 left.
11 left, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we did a cleanup one day at the field, and I had the boys bring their bags out, and I had them empty the bags. We came up with 47 baseballs.
Oh, we do it all the time. After about a month or so, we bring the bags over, we empty them a little bit.
Yeah.
And we, end up with another bucket of baseballs.
It's funny, I'd always give the pitchers, I call the bullpen ball. Here's a brand new pearl for you. This is every time you throw a bullpen, you got a pearl to use, and without a doubt, they would lose that ball in the first 2 or 3 days. But yet, all these other players would have 15 balls in their bag that weren't, all.
Well, we're high school baseball coaches, so what? When there's a foul ball, the players go get them, right?
Yes,
they chase them, right? And some of those balls get back in the game, and some of those balls get back into their bags.
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't razz them too much on it, because it's just part of it,
Yeah, for sure.
They want to go out and play. They want to go out and play catch with good balls, and
yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm very happy we had this conversation, and I appreciate you coming on and talking with us. I think this is it's all good stuff. You see the inside of I call it how the sausage is made, and in your case, how your experiences growing up made you the man you are today, and the philosophies that you have are still those philosophies that I think were bred into you back in those days in Illinois.
No doubt about it.
So
no doubt about it. Well, you two guys, man, you guys are my two favorite baseball coaches from Burbank. So, this has just been an absolute pleasure to
great to see you.
Chat with you guys and go over the game of baseball and the book and growing up and those experiences. And you guys have been, close friends of mine for years and years.
We appreciate it.
I really loved it.
We appreciate you, Coach.
Yep, absolutely. Well, that's it for another Coach's Corner. For Coach Jim Ozella and Coach Bob Hart, this is Craig Sherwood. Thank you very much for watching the show today. We hope you got something out of it. Please go buy the book. I think you really will enjoy the book. I think it's something that you really will like. And like I say, there'll be a description and a link to it down below in the description. So please give it a read. I think it's you'll enjoy it. So anyhow, that's it for another show. We thank you very much for listening, and we will talk to you again next time. Thank you for listening. We ask that you please hit the like button and subscribe so that our channel may continue to grow. If you really enjoyed this video, please also consider giving us a super thanks. And how about a channel membership that will have extra perks and exclusive offers just for you, our supporters.